Clara's hands trembled as she lit the kerosene lamp. The winter dawn brought no warmth to the ranch house that stood alone against the Wyoming wilderness. 3 years a widow, and still the silence cut deeper than the cold. She pulled her shawl tighter and moved to the window, watching snow gather on the fence posts her husband Thomas had set years ago. The photograph on the mantel caught the lamp's glow. Thomas in better days, his smile easy beneath his weathered hat. Clara touched the frame, feeling the familiar ache. Some mornings she could almost hear his boots on the porch, almost smell coffee brewing in the pot he'd always fill first. A thud from below broke her reverie. Distinct, deliberate, coming from the root cellar. Clara froze. Nobody for miles. No visitors expected in this weather. She reached for Thomas's old shotgun, hanging above the door where he'd left it. The wood felt cold against her calloused palms. Another sound. Something shifting below the floorboards. She moved toward the cellar door, each step careful on the creaking pine. The latch lifted with a protest of rusted metal. Shotgun raised, she descended. The ranch sat 5 miles from the nearest neighbor, perched on a stretch of land that Thomas had claimed with pride and tended with devotion. Clara had learned to love it through his eyes, the way the mountains caught the sunset, how the creek sang during spring thaw. Now she maintained it through the rituals of memory. Each morning she fed the few remaining cattle, collected eggs from the henhouse, and tended the small garden that still yielded root vegetables through the cold months. The work kept her hands busy while her mind wandered through the rooms of the past. Folks from town checked on her occasionally, Pastor Miller with his Bible verses, Sarah Jenkins with her casseroles, but they always left before dark, leaving Clara to the company of shadows. She'd grown accustomed to solitude, wearing it like a second skin. Her face, once soft with youth, had hardened into angles and lines. Her dark hair, streaked with silver, stayed pulled back in a practical braid. Only her eyes retained something of the woman Thomas had courted, deep wells of feeling she kept carefully covered. The evening brought an early darkness and the promise of more snow. Clara sat by the fire, a wooden chest open at her feet, Thomas's things, preserved like relics. His pipe, his pocket watch, letters he'd written during his time away. Her fingers found something unfamiliar tucked in the lining, a folded piece of parchment, yellowed with age. She smoothed it open, squinting at the faded writing. The North Creek Bend. 20 paces from the split oak. What was taken can be returned. A promise kept too late. Clara read it twice, then again. Thomas had never mentioned any promise, any hidden thing. The handwriting wasn't his, more hurried, slanting where it stood straight. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows in their frames. The storm that had threatened all day finally broke, bringing snow that whipped against the glass like thrown sand. Clara was replacing the paper when she heard it, a groan, followed by a cough, coming from below. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she took the shotgun and a lantern. The cellar stairs creaked beneath her weight. The air grew damp and cold as she descended, the light casting long shadows across the shelves of preserved foods and sacks of potatoes. "Who's there?" Her voice sounded stronger than she felt. A shuffle from behind the apple barrels. Clara raised the shotgun. "Step out slow." A man emerged, hands raised. Blood matted his dark hair and stained his coat. His face, half hidden by several days' growth of beard, was pale with pain or cold or both. "Don't shoot, ma'am." His voice rasped. "I mean no harm. What are you doing in my cellar?" Clara kept the shotgun steady. "Needed shelter." He swayed slightly. "Lost my horse in the storm. Found your cellar doors around back." Clara studied him. Mid-40s perhaps, tall and lean beneath the dirt and blood. His eyes, dark, watchful, reminded her of a cornered wolf. "You're hurt. Running with some men who didn't care for my company." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Or maybe it was my winnings at cards. As he shifted, his sleeve pulled back, revealing a tattoo on his forearm, a compass rose with a falcon at its center. Clara's breath caught. Thomas had worn the same mark, inked during his time away before they married. He'd never explained its meaning. "That tattoo," she said. "Where did you get it?" Something flickered in the man's eyes, recognition, then wariness. "Old story. Not worth telling." He winced, pressing a hand to his side. "I'll be on my way once the storm passes." Clara lowered the shotgun slightly. "You'll bleed out before then." She made a decision that would change everything after. "Come upstairs. I'll tend those wounds." The stranger called himself Jonah. Clara helped him to the kitchen table, where the lamplight revealed the full extent of his injuries, a deep cut along his hairline, bruised ribs, and a knife wound in his side that had soaked his shirt with blood. "You've had worse than a bad card game," she observed, heating water on the stove. Jonah said nothing as she cleaned the blood from his face. His eyes, when they met hers, held something that made her stomach tighten, a familiarity that shouldn't exist between strangers. "How long since your husband passed?" he asked suddenly. Clara's hands stilled. 3 years. "How did you know?" "Wedding band on your finger." Man's boots by the door, but covered in dust. His coat still hanging on the peg. She resumed cleaning his wounds. "Thomas died of fever. Nothing dramatic. Just took sick and couldn't get well." Jonah nodded. When she helped him remove his shirt to bandage his side, she saw more clearly the tattoo that matched her husband's, and beneath it, a web of old scars that told stories of violence. "You're running from the law," she said. Not a question. "Yes." No pretense. "I should turn you in." "You should." His eyes held hers. "But you won't. Not tonight." He was right. Something kept her from writing for the sheriff, perhaps the storm, perhaps the tattoo, perhaps the loneliness that had become her constant companion. "You can stay in the back room tonight. In the morning, we'll see." Days passed. The storm showed no signs of breaking, blanketing the ranch in snow too deep for travel. Clara found herself in an uneasy alliance with Jonah, who helped with chores despite his injuries. They spoke little, but she felt his eyes following her, studying her as if trying to solve a puzzle. On the third evening, as they sat by the fire, Clara finally asked what had been burning in her mind. "How do you have Thomas's mark?" "That tattoo wasn't common." Jonah stared into the flames. "We rode together. Long time ago. Thomas was a rancher. He never rode with anyone." A humorless smile touched Jonah's lips. "Is that what he told you?" Cold settled in Clara's stomach. "What are you saying?" "Before this place, before you, Thomas Harden rode with the Blackwell gang. We all wore the mark, those of us in the inner circle." Clara shook her head. "That's not possible. Thomas was an honest man. He became one. For you." Jonah's voice softened. "He talked about you. The woman who made him want to be better." The room seemed to tilt beneath Clara. She remembered Thomas's unexplained absences before they married, the money that purchased their ranch appearing suddenly, the nightmares that sometimes woke him sweating and calling out names she didn't know. "You're lying," she whispered, but doubt had already taken root. "I wish I was." Jonah shifted, wincing at the pain in his side. "Thomas got out. Made a clean break. The rest of us." He shrugged. "Some choices mark you forever." That night, Clara lay awake, memories rearranging themselves like pieces of a broken mirror, forming a new reflection of the man she'd loved. Had she ever truly known Thomas? The question echoed in the empty space beside her. In the morning, she found Jonah examining the photograph on the mantel, his fingers hovering above Thomas's face. "He was happy here," Jonah said without turning. "You should know that. Whatever came before, this life with you, it was real." Clara approached slowly. "Were you friends?" "Brothers, almost. Until he left." Something like grief crossed Jonah's face. I envied him. His courage to walk away. As Clara changed Jonah's bandages later that day, she noticed something tucked inside his shirt, the corner of a folded paper. When he dozed off, pain and exhaustion finally claiming him, she carefully extracted it. A letter, addressed to Thomas Harden. Dated 2 years ago, a year after his death. "Thomas," it read, "I've tried to find you. The others are gone now, Blackwell hanged. Michael's shot down in Colorado. It's just me left carrying what we did. I need to make it right. The money from the Sweetwater job, I've kept your share. Clean money now, turned honest through years of careful work. It's yours by right, or your widow's if rumors of your passing are true. I'll come when I can. Look for me when winter breaks. Your brother in all but blood, Jay." Clara's hands trembled. The Sweetwater job, she'd heard of it. A bank robbery 15 years ago that had left 2 men dead. Thomas had been part of this? When Jonah woke, he found her waiting, the letter in her hand. "You came to return blood money," she said. He didn't deny it. "And to warn you, there's a marshal named Hollister who's been tracking me. He knows about Thomas's connection to the gang. If he finds me here, he'd take the ranch. Everything Thomas built. Everything you built together," Jonah corrected gently. Clara stood, moving to the window. Snow continued to fall, isolating them from the world beyond. "Where is it?" "This money you mentioned. Buried. 20 paces from the split oak at the North Creek bend." He smiled faintly. "Sound familiar?" The parchment in Thomas's chest. Not addressed to Thomas, but written by him. A map for himself, perhaps, or a reminder. Why would Thomas hide a note about money he never claimed? Maybe he wanted to tell you someday. Maybe he couldn't bring himself to touch it. Jonah's eyes held a sadness Clara recognized. Some debts can't be paid with money. That night, Clara dreamed of Thomas, not as she'd known him, but younger, wilder, riding beneath an open sky with a freedom she'd never witnessed in him. She woke with tears on her cheeks and a strange lightness in her chest, as if something locked tight had finally broken open. The next morning brought clear skies. The storm had passed, leaving a pristine blanket of white across the land. Clara knew Jonah would leave soon. His wounds were healing, and staying put meant risking capture. She found him on the porch, looking toward the road. "They'll come," he said simply. "Hollister's persistent." Clara nodded. "What will you do?" "Keep moving. It's what I know." He turned to her. "Come with me." The offer hung between them, impossible and tempting. "This is my home," she said finally. "Thomas's home. Thomas would want you safe. Thomas kept secrets that might cost me everything." There was no bitterness in her voice, only a quiet recognition. "But this land is still mine. Our life here was real, whatever came before." Jonah studied her face. "You're stronger than he said." A faint smile touched her lips. "He never saw me alone." The sound of horses broke the moment, distant but drawing closer. Jonah tensed. "3 riders," he said. "Coming fast." Clara made her decision in that instant. The route's cellar. There's a space behind the north wall. Thomas built it as a storm shelter. "Go, Clara. Go." She pushed him toward the door. "I'll handle this." Marshal Hollister looked nothing like Clara had imagined, not a hard-faced lawman, but an older gentleman with tired eyes and a careful manner. His deputies flanked him, younger and more eager as they dismounted in her yard. "Mrs. Harden?" Hollister removed his hat. "Apologies for the intrusion. We're tracking a fugitive who might have passed this way. Jonah Reeves. Dangerous man." Clara kept her expression neutral. "I've been alone here through the storm, Marshal. Haven't seen anyone." Hollister nodded, but his eyes scanned the property. "Mind if we look around?" "Just to be thorough. My husband's been dead 3 years, Marshal. I've got nothing to hide." The search was methodical. The deputies checked the barn, the outbuildings, the house. Clara's heart pounded as they approached the cellar doors, but she kept her hands steady as she poured coffee for the marshal at her kitchen table. "Your husband," Hollister said conversationally. "Thomas Harden. Did he ever speak of his life before settling here?" Clara met his gaze directly. "Thomas was a private man. Whatever he was before we met doesn't change who he was with me." Something like respect flickered in Hollister's eyes. "Mrs. Harden, I should tell you that your husband was suspected of involvement with the Blackwell gang. If you're harboring Reeves out of some misplaced loyalty." "My loyalty is to my home, Marshal, to the life I built. Thomas is gone, and whatever debts he owed died with him." The deputies returned, reporting nothing found. Hollister seemed unsurprised, almost relieved. "We'll continue north," he said, rising. At the door, he paused. "Mrs. Harden, if Reeves does come here, be careful. He may speak of brotherhood and old loyalties, but he's a wanted man for good reason." After they rode away, Clara waited a full hour before opening the cellar. Jonah emerged, his face grim. "You lied for me. I protected what's mine." Clara's voice was steady. "This land. My memories. My choice about who deserves mercy." That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Clara made a decision. "I want to see it," she said. "The money. What Thomas left behind." They rode out at dusk, following the creek northward. The split oak stood like a sentinel against the darkening sky, its massive trunk divided by some long-ago lightning strike. Jonah counted 20 paces from it and began to dig. The metal box emerged from the frozen earth like a confession. Inside, Clara found stacks of bills and a folded note in Thomas's handwriting. For Clara, it read, "If you're reading this, you know the truth I couldn't tell. This money was taken wrongly. Use it rightly. Forgive me for the man I was before I loved you." Tears blurred her vision. In death, Thomas had finally shared his secret, not with words spoken in life, but with trust that she would understand. Dawn broke clear and cold. Jonah stood on the porch, saddlebags packed, ready to ride. Clara handed him a bundle of food and a small pouch of money. "Not from the box," she said, seeing his expression. "That's staying buried for now. This is mine to give." "What will you do?" he asked. "Live," she answered simply. "Plant the spring crops. Maybe build that new barn Thomas always talked about. Hollister will return. Let him. I have nothing to hide now." She looked out across the land that had witnessed her joy and grief. No more secrets. Jonah mounted his horse. "Thomas was the lucky one," he said quietly. "Not because he escaped the life. Because he found you." Clara watched him ride away, a solitary figure against the vast landscape. The tattoo that had connected him to Thomas, to a past she'd never known, disappeared with him. That evening, she sat on the porch, Thomas's journal open in her lap. She'd found it among his things, never before having the heart to read it. Now, she turned the pages slowly, discovering the man who had become her husband, his struggles, his hopes, his gratitude for the life they'd built. Started over today, one entry read. Buried the money from Sweetwater. Buried the man I was with it. Clara deserves better than a thief's fortune. She deserves a man who earns his way honest. Clara closed the journal and looked out at the land stretching before her, their land, earned through years of shared labor, shared dreams. The root cellar door stood ajar, no longer hiding secrets but simply serving its purpose. Tomorrow she would plant the first seedlings into indoor trays, the beginning of another growing season. Life continuing, as it must. The photograph of Thomas watched from the window, his smile now holding new meaning. Clara nodded to it, a silent acknowledgement between them. Some truths changed everything while changing nothing at all. The love remained, complicated now by knowledge but no less real. She rose and walked toward the garden plot, already planning where the new rose would go when spring finally arrived. Behind her, the ranch house stood solid against the landscape, a testament to choices made, secrets revealed, and the quiet courage it takes to begin again.